My name is Jack Turner, and if there's one thing I've learned about people like Karen, it's that they don't lose control all at once. They lose it piece by piece, right after they realize they never had it to begin with. The lake next to Silver Creek Estates had always been there, quiet, still, surrounded by land most people assumed belonged to the HOA because that's what they were told. And like most things people are told often enough, they stopped questioning it. Karen especially. She treated that lake like it was part of her authority, like it existed under her rules. No boats without approval, no fishing unless you were a resident, no access without permission, and for years, no one challenged that. Because no one knew the truth, until I bought it. The deal itself wasn't complicated. The lake and the surrounding land had been under private ownership for decades. Old family, no development, no real interest from anyone, until me. I saw what it was, not just water, not just land, but leverage because everything around it depended on it. The moment the papers were signed, nothing looked different. The water stayed still. The trees didn't move. The houses around it looked exactly the same. But ownership had changed. And ownership, it took 3 days. That's how long it took before I saw her walking down toward the shoreline, confident. Like always. She stopped when she saw me standing near the dock. "You're not supposed to be here," she said. I looked out over the water, then back at her. "That's interesting. This is HOA-controlled property." I almost smiled. "No," I said calmly. "It isn't." She frowned. "Yes, it is." I reached into my jacket and pulled out the folded document. Didn't wave it, didn't push it in her face, just held it where she could see. "Not anymore." She hesitated, just for a second, then stepped closer. "What is that?" "Ownership transfer." Her expression didn't change right away, because her mind hadn't caught up yet. "That's not possible. It's already done." Silence, short, tight. Then she shook her head. "We manage this lake. Not anymore." That's when the first crack showed. Small but real. "You can't just take over shared property," she said. I looked at her evenly. It was never shared. That hit harder. Because now she wasn't just losing control, she was realizing she never had it. She turned and walked away without another word. But I knew that wasn't the end. That was the beginning. The next morning I came back down to the shoreline and found something new. A set of temporary markers. Stakes pushed into the ground, bright tape running between them, cutting across a section of land that extended from Karen's backyard, straight toward the lake. I stood there for a moment, looking at it, because I knew exactly what she was trying to do. Claim space visually, psychologically, like if she marked it, it would become hers. I followed the line of stakes carefully, measured the distance in my head, compared it to what I already knew, and sure enough, she had crossed into my land. Not by a little, by enough that it mattered. That's when I decided it was time, not to argue, not to explain, but to act. I spent the next 2 days preparing quietly. Survey team came out early one morning, marked everything properly, every boundary, every corner, every inch documented because once I moved forward, there wouldn't be any room for debate. Karen showed up while they were still working. "What is this?" she demanded. I didn't look up from the map. "Verification. You don't have permission to do this." I almost laughed. "I don't need it." She stepped closer. "This is HOA land." I finally looked at her. "No," I said calmly. "This is where you went too far." She didn't understand yet, but she was about to. The next morning the trucks arrived, not loud, not aggressive, just efficient. Materials unloaded, posts lined up, concrete ready. Because I wasn't building something temporary, I was building something permanent. A fence, 6 feet high, solid, running exactly along the legal boundary. Changes everything. I didn't rush to announce it, didn't put up signs, didn't make a scene, because I knew something important. Karen would find out on her own, and when she did, that's when things would get interesting. Which just happened to cut directly across the section of land Karen thought was hers, right through the edge of her yard. I watched from a distance as the first posts went in, measured, precise, because this wasn't about sending a message. It was about enforcing reality. Karen came running out halfway through the process. "What are you doing?" she shouted. I walked over slowly. "Building on my property. You can't put that there." I gestured toward the markers. "Survey says I can. That cuts into my yard." I looked at her. "No," I said. "It reveals where your yard actually ends." That was the moment it hit her fully, because now it wasn't about words anymore. It wasn't about claims. It was physical, visible, permanent. The fence kept going up, section by section, by section by section, until it stood there, dividing the space completely. Clean line, no confusion. One side hers, the other side mine, exactly where it should have been all along. Karen stood there watching it, silent now, because there was nothing left to argue. Everything she believed, everything she claimed, was now sitting on the wrong side of that fence. She tried to fight it. Of course she did. Filed complaints, called the county, pushed every angle she could. But every time the answer came back the same. Survey confirmed. Ownership verified. Construction legal. There was nothing she could do. And that's the part people like her never expect, because they think control comes from pushing harder, but it doesn't. It comes from being right, and she wasn't. The story spread through Silver Creek Estates fast. Neighbors started noticing, asking questions. looking at their own boundaries more carefully. Because if Karen was wrong, what else had they assumed? That's how it starts. Doubt, then questions, then truth. Karen didn't last long after that. Pressure built from every side, residents frustrated, board members backing away, because no one wants to stand next to a mistake once it's exposed. She stepped down quietly, like most do, no announcement, no explanation, just gone. As for the fence, it's still there, exactly where it was built, strong, straight, unmoving, and every time I walk past it, I think about that moment, because when Karen tried to claim more than what was hers, she thought she was expanding control. But what she actually did was force the truth into the open, and once that line was drawn, there was no crossing it back.